unable to be with us. Okay.
Great. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending this webinar on our virtual internships. I am Jill Lacheski. I'm the director of the Office of Internships and Service Learning.
And I am Cynthia Chavez-Metoyer. I'm the faculty director of the Office of Internships.
Yes, so thank you again for attending this. So today we're going to talk a little bit about virtual internships. Before we get started though, just a few housekeeping things. As Cynthia mentioned, this is going to be recorded. We're going to send this recording out to everyone via email. Everyone who is registered, you can feel free to share it. We're also going to post this on our internship website for everyone to access. And then everyone is going to be muted through the presentation. So feel free to ask any questions or comments or anything in the chat room here. And I would also like to quickly introduce Jasmine Jefferson. She could say hi and wave so you all know who that is. And she is our administrative coordinator for the Office of Internships and Service Learning. She's going to be assisting us in moderating the questions at the end. And the last thing is that at the end, we are going to have a link to fill out a quick survey to help us with how we did and if there were any other questions that anybody has. So at the end, you'll see a link come up. Apparently the link is for a Mac. So if you have a Mac, you can click on the link directly. If you have a PC, you copy and paste. We'll also send the survey in an email as well, but it might be quicker to do it at the end. Anything I missed, Cynthia?
I think that's it. We, as Jill said, since everyone is muted and we're going to use the chat room for questions, it's up to you whether you want to keep on your cameras turned on or not. That's up to you. But we'll go ahead and get started.
Yep. So again, this is about a virtual internship boot camp. So it's basically best practices on how to create a quality virtual internship. We're all in this world now that's virtual, and we're all trying to figure out how to do this the best way possible. So hopefully this presentation will give you some tips on how to do that. Next slide. So these are some of the topics that we're going to be covering. What exactly is a virtual internship? Getting them ready, talking about some of the projects, some of the feedback at the end, and additional resources. And again, we are not the end all be all, but we can at least pass on some information that we've learned so far. So to start off, what is a virtual internship? So it's going to be just like any other academic internship in that you still need to do a quality internship. This is still for students to go out, do career exploration. Internships are high impact practice. And so it's experiential learning for a student to be able to go out, experience the world, the workforce, career exploration. So, but now in this day and age, it's going to be in a virtual mode.
So. And I also want to add that while they're now on our radar, thanks to COVID-19 pandemic, but virtual internships are not new. They have been ongoing for some time. There have been some companies that have been doing it since the late 1990s and doing it quite well. But because of the pandemic now, we've been compelled to move toward toward virtual for the time being. So just to say that it's not new.
So internships and the value to our students. So they get to learn the skills that are in the, as it says, 21st century workplace. Students have learned a lot of information from their schooling, and now this is where they get to apply it. So they also get to understand that the demands of the workplace and the scheduling is different than what they had in school. So they're learning how to work in a workplace. They get to identify different career options. There's a lot of times that they think they want to go into one career, and then once they get into the workplace, they learn about a whole nother career that they may be really excited about. So, and this also allows them to create their networking, learn new things, be able to obtain new skills, new communication skills, and honestly get inspired about what's out there, because they don't know what they don't know. So this is a wonderful opportunity for the students to go into the workforce, understand the industry, understand the careers that are out there, and really get to have experiential learning. There we go. Oh, some things that interns are not. So interns are not just free manual labor. Obviously, everything's virtual right now, but they are not coffee getters and floor sweepers and filers. The whole purpose of an internship is so that the student goes out and truly experiences that career, truly experiences that industry, and really gets a good feel and is involved with the company. They are not a replacement for an employee. This is not where you get to let an employee go because you have an intern coming in to take over parts of their position. So that is absolutely not what an intern is. And keep in mind also that interns are not experts, and sometimes they're not very experienced in some of the skills that you're asking them to do based on the fact that this is somewhat new to them. However, they are coming in with all sorts of new skills like social media, marketing, that you may not know about. So having a conversation with that intern to find out what their experience is and what they are experts in, and really talking to them is super helpful. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So getting ready for your intern, and I think that's a place where probably many of us are wondering, especially if you haven't done a virtual internship, how does one get ready to have one? And so there are some things that I want to talk about. I'm going to talk about them almost like they're linear, but they're not. These can sort of overlap, and I might talk about them in another area. But the first basic area that I want to talk about is onboarding and training. And again, we're going to keep emphasizing that this is not unique to a virtual internship. We would always want to onboard and train even with a face-to-face one. But I'm just going to give some ideas on what that might look like for a virtual one. So it's really important that you think about onboarding and training as that first impression for your intern. And an intern is, interns can potentially be a pipeline for employment for you, right? Where you're also, trying to test out what the market is for potential or future employees. So that first impression is really important. And there is a Boston consulting group that looked at HR practices and found that onboarding had more impact on anything for effective recruiting. So despite this really important part that onboarding plays, we often just kind of let it go and don't really think about it. So this is something that can really affect productivity, engagement, as well as retention. So it's important to figure out how you can make sure that your interns feel welcomed and excited, especially in the absence of physical office hours. They don't have that, their office mate, the person next door to them that can come by and say hello. You can't just leave, a welcome swag or something on their desk. So you have to think about how we can do that virtually. And I would also say that it's really important to think about onboarding over the course of a week or longer, rather than just, one day, here's everything and we're going to dump it all. Think about it in terms of short bursts. This will give your intern time to reflect and digest the information and be able to ask questions. And it will also give you time to think about, was there something I missed? And, we'll be sure and talk about that tomorrow or something. So we recommend that you take onboarding over the first week. Make it a 5-day program instead of a 1-day type of thing. And that throughout that week, you're going to create very intentional checkpoints and touch points so that you may have different people who you're going to arrange for the intern to meet with, have them, see a orientation video, that type of thing. So remember that your intern is new to your organization, and so your onboarding should tell them about your company's culture and values. What is it that is important to your organization? So begin the first day with live sessions that include an introduction about your vision, your values, what's your product, your services, perhaps a brief history of your organization. And as you're doing this, then you want to think about it in perhaps these 3 ways of preparing, providing, and identifying. So it's important to have those onboarding materials that are ready to share with your intern before their start date. Before they step through the door, think about what is it that they need to do their job and what are their duties. This may seem pretty obvious to some of you, but oftentimes we think about, yeah, we can use an intern. That would be great. And you have maybe 100 ideas of things they could do. And then they actually come in the door and you're sort of looking around, what should they do? So create a job description, develop a work plan that outlines their responsibilities, their goals, the duration of the internship. And it might be more convenient for that person to just, kind of do whatever comes up. But, like say, well, here, start over here with this spreadsheet. But we really recommend avoiding that. What's the project that you want them to do? Make sure that you're providing them with meaningful work that's going to benefit them, teach them about your profession, as well as benefit your organization, so that it's valuable for both of you. And then clear standards for evaluating their work. So that's fair. I'll talk more about feedback, but that's super important. And then you're also going to need to make sure that there's a place where you can share documents, assign tasks, communicate regularly. And I know that you all have been thrown into this because of COVID-19. How do we communicate with our teammates? How do we share documents? How do we do things like this? Have a Zoom conference? So what is your project management tool going to be like, your online collaboration? There are many, many out there. But what's the one that's good for your company, your organization, and be prepared to orient the intern to that. And then you want to also provide any necessary tools and equipment that they may need and have all of that set up. Keep in mind that you are likely to have hopefully future interns, so that equipment, whatever it is that they're using for your company, hopefully is an investment for the next intern down the road. And bear in mind that not every student is going to have high-performing computers at home or the technology that you need. So either how are you going to provide that, or how are you going to be able to accommodate for their computer capabilities for what you want for them to have, okay? And then the last element of onboarding and training is to be able to identify a site supervisor or that internship coordinator. Who is that one key person who's going to be in charge of assigning those assignments online, communicating with them directly, regularly, the person who will be responsible for asking the questions the intern may have, resolving any issues, and then offering that one-on-one support. This may be someone who's part of the project you want to assign, but probably not the busiest person on that project. The person doesn't even have to have management skills beforehand, but you do need to train that supervisor, make sure that supervisor is prepared to be capable of training and managing the intern. Perhaps someone who's just enjoys teaching and training. This supervisor and coordinator then is going to be responsible for, you know, helping to plan ahead and prepare and create all of those assignments and so forth. And also being able to assess the intern. We recommend that you conduct some sort of pre-assessment with your intern to figure out where they are, and so that they're in the right place in your organization. So in summary, make your onboarding interactive to keep the participants engaged, to keep them connected. And we will post on our website just a sample of what that onboarding week might look like, what those activities might look like. They could be fun, like having a scavenger hunt on your website where they're finding information, or where they're meeting up with different people on your team and learning some things about them. Okay. The next area, still connected to all of this, is communication and feedback. And particularly in a virtual environment, you cannot over communicate. One of the biggest mistakes that we can make is just leaving the virtual intern to themselves, right, to their own devices, saying, here's the project and I'll check in with you, in a few weeks. We can't just simply set the ground rules, give them a list of tasks, and send them on their way. They're going to need support and feedback so that they can continually improve. The same is true for a face-to-face traditional intern, but at least with someone who's in your office, you might have those visual cues of they're struggling, or maybe they're sitting there, they're not doing something, or you don't have that with the virtual intern. So you want to make sure that you have a plan to establish clear communication. When are you going to check in with them? During that first week or two, it's important for multiple people to be checking in with them, and to check in more than once. Certainly, if your intern is with you, the schedule has been established for 3 times a week. Every day of their schedule, you should be checking in with them. So, the intention isn't to overwhelm your interns, but you do want to make sure that you already know in advance, we will be checking in every Monday morning at 9 a.m. or whatever that is that you agree to, whatever makes sense, and that it's regular and ongoing, and you've established how you're going to communicate. And most virtual interns are going to be with you 10 to 15 hours a week. So what makes sense? Probably the first week, you're going to have longer check-ins. That supervisor will have a longer discussion, and then it may shorten up as you move on. And you might be tempted, because we all get really busy, you might be tempted to want to cancel that. Like, I don't really have anything to talk to you about. But what you're signaling to that person when you say, I'm going to cancel this, is that I'm really busy and you're not a priority. So if you have to cancel it, reschedule it, and then have a list of questions that you're going to ask every single time. What are you working on this week? How are your things going with your mentor, with your buddy? What could be better right now? And how are you? How are you doing? So this weekly check-in then is going to give them some time to give you some feedback. And related to that feedback, you're modeling that you're asking them for feedback, and you are going to give them feedback. So think about how you want to get feedback to improve your program or what you're doing, and how you can implement that. Remember, don't ask, what you don't want to find out or what you're not willing to implement. But if you really want to know how to make some improvements, then ask them, and also create that environment where you're giving them regular and ongoing feedback. How did they do on this project? What was done well? What could be done better? So that you're not frustrated with if they're not stacking up to what you expect. They don't know what they don't know. So think about that. And then the last piece to all of this is, how are you going to integrate them with your team? Remember, they're not just working among, as an island unto themselves. They're part of your team. So even before the first day, the entire team should know that there's an intern, there's someone new who's coming. You should send some sort of, enthusiastic message to them. We're looking forward to having you on board, and find out who can be their buddy, who can be their mentor, not their supervisor, someone who's just, someone where they can ask questions. How does Microsoft Team work? I can't figure out how to mute my microphone. Those kinds of things that they wouldn't want to necessarily ask their supervisor. But a buddy, if you establish someone who can just be, a friendly ear, offers some support. And then use that first week for meet and greets, not just for you and the supervisor, but for everyone in the team. And the last thing is to set up a mentorship program. And as I mentioned, assigning a buddy, someone who is not their supervisor. And if you have more than one intern, it could be really useful for all of the interns to be able to be in that mentoring group together, where they can ask the buddy, the mentor, questions, but also become a support for one another. So some of my, we can talk more about this if you have some questions, but this is, onboarding is so important that it's not the time to abandon it because of, it's virtual. It's really time to double down with the onboarding. So think about how you might be able to do that creatively. We have some, as I said, some samples that we'll be able to post. And Jill, will you talk about some possible intern projects for virtual interns? You're on mute.
Absolutely. So I just wanted to add one more thing to some of the information that Cynthia just provided, is that if for some reason a student is very excited and you're excited about having them as an intern, but for some reason they don't have any kind of equipment, they maybe don't have the computer laptop or something, please have that student come to us, because our university will probably be able to help them get equipment or internet, whatever that is. So we have a lot of resources for our students, so we'll probably be able to resolve that. So I don't want that to be a barrier for our students. So feel free to send us. So talking about internship projects, many of you that are on this call right now have been able to take your current projects and transfer them into a virtual one. And many of you have created new ones thinking, okay, let's get innovative and try and figure out how we can make this work and have an internship still, even though it's virtual. So one of the things, thank you. One of the things when you have your intern is to ask them about their courses that they've taken, some of the skill sets that they have, some of the former projects they've worked on, what they're interested in, and that way it'll really help craft, excuse me, it'll help craft an internship that everyone is excited about, something that is useful to your company and something that the student has experience in or wants to learn more about. A lot of times they come in and again, they don't know what they don't know. So to have that conversation with them really helps you get a feel for understanding what the student is interested in and what their skill sets are and what your needs are as well. So the next one is ensuring that your student has plenty to work on. One of the two biggest challenges that students have when they come back and they give us feedback about their internship experience is that they didn't have enough to do. And nothing is worse than a bored intern. So a lot of companies are a little reluctant to give them too much. So that's where, as Cynthia mentioned, all of the communication is really important to be able to have that weekly conversation with them. How is the project going? Do you need more work? That kind of thing. So being able to have that conversation, because the students will also do the project and then want to come up with ideas. Maybe you want to do this differently, or I thought of a way to streamline it, or I thought in addition we could add this. So, really having that conversation with the student to be able to know that they have enough work and that the work that they have is super valuable to them and to you is really important. One of the things you can do if you have a company that has a large project that you want to give an intern is to potentially break it up into sub-projects. If you have multiple interns, you can break them up and assign them to multiple interns and then have them work collaboratively together. So there's a lot of different ways to be able to do this. Again, having that communication with the interns, because they will have insight. They're coming into your company with fresh eyes and they may be seeing things that you're not seeing. So, having them be involved and having them be really excited about it, that's when we get those wonderful stories from the interns. When they come back and they say, oh my gosh, this project, I got to start it, I got to end it. It's something I can put on my resume. It's something that's mentioned in my letter of recommendation. They get very excited if they have projects that can start and end, or even start and hand off to that next intern. One of the great questions to ask an intern if there's a project that they couldn't complete just because it was so large is to kind of leave a legacy to this next intern and ask them to say, hey, what would you recommend for this? Tell the next incoming intern, ideas that you have for bringing this into the future. So really, really having that conversation with the intern is helpful. So these are some actual project ideas that we've gotten from our database. So many of you on the call here will recognize some of your virtual internship duties and ideas. So these are just some of them. And I want to make sure that I emphasize to all of our wonderful community partners to think outside of the box, to be innovative in thinking about this, because there's a lot of things that can happen virtually that you may not have thought of because we're so used to being in person and having them there and having that paper, having them, move that paper around. So there's a lot of different ideas here. So I'm throwing this out to our audience here. If you can put anything in the chat room, any additional ideas that you've thought of or that are not on here, so that this can be recorded for all of our other community partners. I absolutely welcome so any other ideas in the chat room. But again, I really want you guys to think about the needs of your organization and opportunities in which those needs can be married with the student and the student learning and the student career exploration and mentoring. I think there's a lot of wonderful opportunities. And honestly, I think that the COVID-19 situation has really helped push us all out of our comfort zone. And I think a lot of positive things in regards to internships are occurring.
And a lot of the ideas that are on here are the intern almost working on the project by themselves. But your company or your organization might interact with, you have clients, right? Your clients are high schoolers. Your clients are I don't know, second language learners. Whatever, you could have whatever your client is, and you could think about how could somebody be able to interact with them just like we are, right? Maybe if I were going to be a language tutor and you have second language learners, and one of your projects is to is just conversation, English conversation, or tutoring in Spanish, and to be able to set up a webinar or a Zoom meeting for that intern to be able to interact with your clients. We have organizations, for example, that work with political refugees and exiles. Maybe it's having conversations with them, just like they would face-to-face on being able to settle into their home, not physically helping them settle into their home, but walking them through what are some of the things that they have to do on a day-to-day basis. Going to the bank, how could I talk with somebody virtually and walk them through those things. So there are, I'm sure, many more ideas that you all have than certainly we do.
Yes, and I think that a lot of the internship projects that we are creating now due to this situation are going to stay. I think once we get back to the regular standard way of life, I think a lot of these internship projects and projects that companies are creating because of this are going to stay, because I think that there's a lot of opportunities out there that will be able to continue even though they're not in person. So for example, we have some education companies that are doing the virtual tutoring. And I think that once things get back to the way that they used to be, this is still going to be something that companies and clients are going to want. So I think that these projects that the interns are working on now are going to be new, but I don't think they're going to go away. I think they're going to stay. So,
the other thing that's maybe somewhat obvious, but virtual internships are not confined to a geographic area. So it's quite possible that an intern could, live here in California and intern at the state capitol, or in the San Marcos area, intern at the in Sacramento, intern in DC. I have a current intern who is a congressional intern, and had to come back home. So they continued their program virtually. Obviously, it's not the same experience that they expected, but all that to say is internships internationally even are part of the discussion. And so students are able to intern with a company, an organization that's in another country, and to be able to integrate into that team. And if you're getting an intern who's outside of the area, or perhaps an international student, then you also want to think about part of your regular communication, perhaps with the buddy, might be something on cultural aspects. What is it that what is workplace life like in the United States, or at least in general for your company? But sometimes it's hard to think about those things because we're so used to it, right? Because you're embedded in your own culture. But you may have a student who is an international student, and so then you also want to think about how can you how might their experience be different? What might you need to let them know about? All right, and so some ideas for being able to stay connected, and this again is part of that the weekly conversations, the weekly touch points you're going to have. One of the things that our organization is doing, our division is doing, is we have a morning virtual kitchen. And so just like you might go and get coffee in the morning and then talk to somebody by the water cooler, we have that the first 30 minutes of our workday, where if somebody wants to pop in and talk, and it's just like, hey, how's it going? Did you watch The Voice last night? What do you think? Whatever that is. And it's just, we have that type of thing for interns, you could have a pizza delivered to them assuming they're somewhere in the United States. Might be a little more difficult if the student is in Argentina or something. You could figure that out. But I do think they have Uber Eats in a lot of places. But you could do, something like that. You could have a lunch and hold a virtual lunch or those types of things. Managers can pose a question of the week in our connection for our team. I'm not sure what Melinda's title is, administrative executive. She'll throw out a question, or she'll tag some people, hey, what's the highlight of your day? And it's trying to keep us connected even when we're not face to face. And so the same with your intern. And, you can just have random video calls, create virtual gaming leagues. If you have Jack TV, people can play those even while they're apart. So these are just some ideas that are maybe fun ways to stay connected throughout the week. And finally, ending the internship. It's super important to remain in the guidelines for the Department of Labor that you have an end date. Internships are generally 10 to 16 weeks, and they just don't go on and on forever. And you don't just want to have your intern disappear, which is why it's important to have, what are the projects, what are the expectations, what are the due dates for those things to keep them on task. But also, everybody should know when it's over. It's a little awkward for you to come to the end of the semester and the student just kind of stops showing up because they've completed all their hours or they finished their project. Just like you welcomed them, you want to make sure that you acknowledge their last day. With it, that could be, with a thank you card, with sending them a gift card in the mail, some swag, something that they can open. You can say a package is coming, and we're all going to get in on a call together, and then you have that person open it up, right? You can send an edible fruit basket, something where you've acknowledged that it's their last day. You can make it, some sort of celebration, and of course, offer to write a letter of reference. And hopefully, if you've been giving them feedback throughout the whole process, they have improved and they have grown. So it's not difficult to write the letter. It would be difficult if the intern was not, matching up to your expectations, and then at the end, you don't feel like you can write a letter. But if you've been giving them that feedback and they're growing and so forth, hopefully then you can write that. And tie up any loose ends, whether that's getting equipment or back, or I don't know, you might require, they had some sort of key badge, or I'm whatever they might have that you need. I would do an exit interview. Remember, you're trying to create an environment of feedback where they're giving you feedback so you can improve, and you're giving them feedback. And so an exit interview is a great way to figure out, what can you do better for future interns, better, so that it's a really good results. You get good results for your company. And then follow up and stay in touch with them. Think about these, these are part of your network. They certainly are going to see you as part of their network. So, stay in touch. If they reach out to you, respond back to them.
Cynthia, can I just add also how important it is showing appreciation for the interns and wrapping it up in a nice, neat little package at the end. It makes everybody, feel good about the experience. And also, these students are going to tell their friends. You're going to have a word of mouth about how great their experience was with your organization. And that's where you're going to get, all of a sudden, the next time that you offer it for the next semester, you're going to get twice as many students because they've told their friends about how great the experience was. So
yeah, and let me also say, if it hasn't been a good experience, or there's something along the way that you need to communicate back to us or back to their faculty, we certainly want to hear that. We know that not every intern, they're not going to be, perfect and super wonderful. If there are issues, of course, we want to hear about that too. Okay. And then finally, additional resources.
So additional resources. So we have our Office of Internships webpage, and we have one specifically for our community partners. And there's a link here for it. And then also we have the community partner handbook that all this information is in. We have checklists, and we've updated it now so that it has the virtual information in it. And so you can find that on the webpage as well. We send that out actually when you sign your agreement. So we send that out, and if initially when you sign your agreement, if you want another copy, feel free to let us know. We can email it to you, or you can find it on our website. And then also for any new opportunities that you have, we're really wanting to start gathering virtual internship opportunities. So I know that there are new ones. So we have a new opportunity form that is also on our website. So please feel free to fill that out. We're tagging all of those as remote, so students can go into the database now and choose the remote tag, and all of these opportunities will come up for them. So please feel free to put any new opportunities up on the form. And then also reference for the Department of Labor standards is on our website. And we are launching today our Office of Internship LinkedIn. So please link us, friend us. I don't know what it's called on LinkedIn, but
follow
connect
us,
with us.
Connect with us.
Connect with us. So please connect with us. We have the link here, and then we'll also send the link out in the email. And if you want to get onto LinkedIn, we are CSUSM Office of Internships. So we would love to have you connect with us so that the students can see all the information about your organization and make some connections. So
good. So we have now some time left for your questions.
Yeah, we had some great questions and great feedback. So the couple of feedback from project ideas, there was one for technology development. A community partner said that CSUSM interns who know like Zoom, Microsoft Teams can help companies in that area as well. So if you have an intern that, and you can do professional development that way. So technology support's definitely a good one.
Yeah, that's especially now.
Yeah, big one.
Another good one is a community partner is having their intern help with applications. So if you have clients that are applying to things, the intern can host remote Zoom workshops and do application webinars and things like that.
Great
Good
idea.
ideas.
Another good one is content development. This one's a cool one. Photography, memes, GIFs. So the intern will be teaching them principles about how to kind of approach that, and then giving the intern the opportunity to create their own creative content. So that's really cool. We had a couple of questions. One question was, how do you protect the intern from accessing company information and passwords for programs that they would typically access in the office? A couple partners advise they use a virtual private network that the intern can access from home. So you can set up specific hours that the intern can access it and then terminate it when the intern's done. Another one is giving the student a temporary password. So that way the student can sign in and only have that for the time that they're the intern, or having them sign a waiver, a confidentiality agreement, anything like that.
That's great.
Yeah, and then another question is, if programs reopen during the summer, will students be allowed to complete in-person or on-site internships as they continue, or will everything still need to be done remotely?
Yeah, I'm gonna say that as long as the restrictions are lifted, we have to go based on the county restrictions. So if the restrictions from the county are lifted, I think we can probably transition back into in-person. Cynthia, would you agree with that?
Yeah, for just so you all know, for our university, the decision has been made that summer courses will be virtual because it's really too cumbersome to shift back and forth. Just like this semester, once we decided to shift to a remote delivery, it was decided that no matter how long this went, the teaching portion would remain remote, even if the rest of the campus went back. So the decision was made so that we could plan for summer. That said, as Jill mentioned, interns, as long as it is in line with the ordinance, then it would be fine. If the ordinances are lifted and you're back to face-to-face, just keep in mind that that making that shift might be difficult for students who are already planning to be out of the area or not driving. So just keep that in mind. But we will match whatever the ordinance is.
Now, Cynthia and Jill, has the decision for fall 2020 been made yet if internships are remote or in person?
Not yet. The decision has we're moving forward right now. The campus is moving forward with under the assumption that courses will be back to campus. The course curriculum, as you may know, is decided the semester before, and so all of that was already in place. We haven't heard otherwise whether or not all of that has to be transitioned. So we're assuming that we can all get back to campus by the fall.
Perfect. Okay. And then a couple last questions about opportunities. So what is the deadline to submitting an opportunity? And if a partner already has a current opportunity and would like to make it remote, how do they notify the team?
Right. So if you currently have one that you can make remote, just send us an email. It might be the easiest way, and just let us know, and then we'll just tag it. And then you don't have to fill out the form again. It's already been approved. So, and
if it's also possible to use that new opportunity form that Jill mentioned earlier, if you want to create something that isn't already created, but you just use that new opportunity form.
And then is there a deadline to submitting an opportunity?
As soon as possible. There's no deadline. We approve them as they come in, and then we post them immediately. So as soon as you send it to us, that's as soon as we'll get it onto the database. So there's no deadline.
Right. There's, but to let you know, and it's also on our website, is that it's helpful to know when students are registering. And so they are registering now for the summer. So if it's something that you wanted if you have a summer internship and you want that to be visible for students looking for a summer internship, then you would want to get that done, in the next week or so. Right. So ongoing, there is no fixed deadline, but you do want to keep in mind, sometimes we have people in organizations in October saying, we're looking for interns. Well, they've already made their decisions by late August, early September, most of them.
So summer starts June 1st, correct? June 1st. So the sooner the better.
One more question. So a lot of organizations unfortunately took a big economic hit for the whole coronavirus. Now, are they able to offer unpaid internships, and how does that work?
Sure. Internships are paid or unpaid. They, if it is a for-profit company, you want to carefully follow the Department of Labor guidelines to make sure that you meet those. And for nonprofits, there's more wiggle room for nonprofits for an unpaid. So again, unpaid or paid are both they're both potentially legitimate, I guess. I would say that. And we want to make sure that they're getting academic credit. Again, the Department of Labor guidelines will let you know that they should be getting academic credit for that.
And if the students that are interested in an internship with you and it's unpaid and you are a for-profit company, are not getting academic credit, please send them to our office. We have a lot of options for them to get academic credit. So.
Any other questions?
Any questions in the chat room? No?
Everybody clicked on that link or copy and pasted that link to be able to give us some feedback. You're welcome, Robert. Any other questions? I like
well, hopefully you give us feedback on that link before you log off. We are so grateful for your community partnership, for you being co-educators with us and our students. And you know, if you have other questions that occur to you, please feel free to send us an email at internships@csusm.edu, and we are happy to help you with that.
And don't forget to connect with us with LinkedIn, and we're going to have our other social media coming up very soon. We're going to have an Instagram, so look out for that.
Good. So thanks for connecting with us. Thank you, Jasmine, for facilitating the chat room there. And again, if there's something we didn't cover, you kind of hoped we covered, just let us know, and we can, you know, we're even happy to connect with you by one-on-one Zoom to talk specifically with you about your organization. Okay.
And we can always do another topic webinar. We got all the time now. Zoom, yes. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Excellent. Bye. Happy Thursday.
Bye.
Bye.